You're watching Coping with COVID-19 with Chris Manners. Today's special guest is Julie Kirschbaum.
Hi, I'm Chris Manners and you're watching Coping with COVID-19. Today my guest is Julie Kirschbaum. She's the Director of Transit at the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, or SFMTA, and she's here today to talk about how the city has been adjusting and adapting our public transportation during this pandemic. Ms. Kirschbaum, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can we begin by talking about the services that have been suspended, and have there been changes to the schedules of those services that are still running?
Absolutely. We've had to make really significant changes to our service in response to COVID-19. Initially going down to as few as 17 core routes. These are routes that people use to get to jobs at the hospital, to get to grocery stores, really to make the most essential trips that are needed throughout this process. We've been fortunate over the last, say 5 or 6 weeks, as our staffing levels have gotten better and as we've increased our cleaning capacity, that we've been able to add some service back. We've added, for example, a community shuttle on Pacific Avenue, which is helping seniors get to grocery stores in Chinatown. We've added a community M-Line bus in the Ingleside, connecting people to Stonestown and to West Portal. And we've been, throughout this process, adding more service to our core network. Corridors like Mission Street, Potrero, near SF General, have really needed increasingly more and more service in order to be able to keep good spacing and prevent crowding on the bus.
That's great. So what measures have we taken to protect our operators and the passengers on buses?
Thank you for asking that. Operator and passenger safety have been our highest priority throughout this and are really guiding everything that we do. The most critical thing that we're doing right now is the mask requirement, really requiring people, if you're going to ride MUNI, to do it safely, protecting yourself and others from germs. We've also implemented backdoor boarding. So except for our customers with disabilities that really need the support of the front door, the ramp, or the leaner, we're asking customers to enter from the back to give extra spacing to our operators. We've provided operators with all of the protective equipment that they need to do the job safely, including gloves and masks. And we're really fortunate that our buses are all equipped with a plexiglass door that essentially creates a completely enclosed operator space for our operators. And some of our services, like the cable car and historic trolleys, which don't have that same protection, we suspended early on in this process. We want our operators to have the physical separation that they need to stay safe out on the road.
Absolutely. So, how have you been managing social distancing on your vehicles? It certainly seems like there's less people on buses these days. And what happens if a bus gets full?
That's a great question. We have reduced the number of people that we consider a bus to be crowded. So heading into this, we might have had 70 or 80 people on the bus. Now it's closer to 20. We're also monitoring passenger loads. Both our operators are monitoring them, as well as we're monitoring them remotely from our transportation management center. If a bus does get too crowded, the operators have a drop-off only sign, and they stop picking passengers up until people have exited the vehicle. It might be a little bit inconvenient if you're waiting for a bus and it doesn't stop to pick you up, but know that there's another one coming shortly behind it, and that should have more space on it so that you can have the social distancing you need throughout this process.
That's great that our bus drivers have a way to let waiting passengers know that their bus is too full. What other ways have you been using to let our residents know about these changes and new policies?
We've been using all different methods to keep customers informed about all of these changes. We've put up almost 2,000 signs and posters at our bus stops in multiple languages, letting people know when routes have changed, when routes have been eliminated, when hours of service have changed. We've also been putting information up through social media and neighborhood groups, and then also really relying on and partnering with the press and the media to make people aware of changes. We want customers to know what to expect in this really unique and unusual time to make things as convenient as possible.
Quite right, yes. Other than the operators themselves, I know you have a very large support staff. Have you made changes at your MUNI facilities as well?
SFMTA has 29 facilities, and enhancing safety at those facilities has really been a team effort. We have an amazing custodial crew that is doing daily cleans as well as deep cleans. The decision to close down the rail system really helped because we were able to take staff that had been cleaning the subway stations and dedicate them to our facilities. We've also seen staff at every level jump in to help with daily cleaning. Things like common areas, desks, lockers, tools. Everybody is pitching in to wipe stuff down, which makes a big difference. We are really proud of the fact that we haven't had any clusters of staff who have had the virus, or really any examples of staff catching it from each other. And we feel that that's because of the steps that we're taking to keep people safe at work. We're also taking ideas from everywhere in the organization. That includes, for example, doing safety briefings rather than doing them in a small room, doing them outside or in a parking lot. Our track crew recently approached us because in order to get to job sites, they had previously taken 3 or 4 people in a city truck. Instead, we're taking them out now in a bus so that they can actually space out on their way to the site. So lots of small changes, but adding up to a big safety benefit.
Oh, that's great stuff. When we look at the transportation system as a whole, what additional steps have been taken to encourage people to consider alternative forms of transport?
We have been looking at it as a system, in part because the bus system is doing less than it has in the past because we have fewer routes and because we have fewer people on the routes. One example is our ETC program, which is a taxi-based program that seniors and people with disabilities can sign up for and use a taxi for essential trips at a very discounted rate. We're also investing in a citywide slow streets system so that people can get out walking or biking and make connections that they may have traditionally made on the bus.
Finally, I know things are changing quickly. How are we planning our next steps as restrictions ease and we move into phase 2 and eventually phases 3 and 4?
I think our probably our biggest thing that we're getting ready for right now is the start of school in August, and make sure that we're ready not only to accommodate all of the general activities like going to restaurants and recreation, but also getting kids to school safely. We're also looking at what are other cities doing around the world that we can learn from, and that's really informing our work as well. We were really fortunate. We had an opportunity to Skype with Taipei, a city that's had a lot of success addressing the virus. We were really flattered. The mayor actually joined the Skype call. And one of the things that they shared with us is that their biggest success has come from 100% mask compliance on transit, as well as in some cases monitoring for temperatures and really making sure that if people were riding, that they were riding healthy. So we're trying to model and apply those best practices to our system and learn as much as we can through this process.
Well, that's fantastic information. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Ms. Kirschbaum. Thank you for the time you've given us today.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, thanks again. Well, that's it for this episode. We'll be back with more pandemic-related information shortly. You've been watching Coping with COVID-19. For SFGovTV, I'm Chris Manners. Thanks for watching.